Hi. So, my name is Melissa Addey. I mostly write historical fiction, and I have literally just finished today, so just today this work got published, a series set in 18th century China in the Forbidden City. It's a series of 4 books, and each novel follows one of the concubines or empresses who lived in the Forbidden City during the Qing dynasty. So each one follows the path that woman took. And each one has some elements of fiction, but is mostly based on a real person. This one is called The Cold Palace. That's its cover. It follows the story of a woman called Ula Nara. She was brought in as a concubine to a prince and eventually ended up becoming empress. So over time, she worked her way up to the rank of empress. At that point, she went mad, cut off all her hair, which was a terrible thing to do in terms of etiquette, because it implied that either the emperor or his mother had died. And since neither of them had, it was interpreted as cursing them, and therefore it was absolutely unforgivable behavior. And the emperor sent her to the Cold Palace. The Cold Palace is an expression, it means you're exiled from court. So this is Ula Nara's story, and what I've chosen to do is take a little extract from the beginning when Ula Nara gets chosen for the Forbidden Cities, for marriage into the Forbidden City. And the way they are chosen is that every girl, every 3 years, every girl between the age of 13 and 16 had to go to the Forbidden City to be selected if wished by the imperial family. So basically the imperial family got first choice of every woman in the empire every 3 years. So nobody ever could get married until you'd been checked out by the imperial family first. And this gives you a flavor of how you get selected. The 2 things you need to know from this section is that Ula Nara really doesn't want to be chosen. She's already in love with someone. Her family is very happy for him to marry him if she's not selected. And that there's a girl called Wan who's standing right next to her who does want to be selected. And I think that's pretty much all you need to know. So this is the first chapter, and it's called Falling Blossoms. The woman shakes her head. Malodorous, she snaps. The rejected girl's face flushes crimson in shame as she is led away back to her family. Apparently the smell from her armpits would have been offensive to an imperial nose. Beijing at the end of the 6th month is unbearably hot. I'm surprised all of the girls here have not been rejected for this reason. The sturdy woman approaches and gestures impatiently for me to raise my arm. I, like all the other girls here, have already had to shed my fine outer robes, made of the best silk my family could afford. I asked my mother to send me in something plainer, still afraid of being chosen, but she refused. I won't be shamed, she said huffily. I know you don't want to be chosen, Ula Nara, but you will be examined by the palace officials. They will see your father's name and our banner on the paperwork beside your own name. I won't have them look down their noses at us just because you wouldn't wear the best we can provide. And so I arrived this morning at an administrative hall in Beijing, just outside the Forbidden City itself. It seems we are not to be allowed into its hallowed precincts until we have been selected as the most superior candidates. I am dressed in a beautiful robe, the best I have ever owned. It is a delicate blue like a spring sky, covered with intricate embroidery featuring fluttering magpies and trees heavy with golden peaches, all symbols for love and happiness, for longevity, prosperity, and future sons, highly auspicious and appropriate for today. It was removed in moments. Eunuchs gathered round each girl in turn to disrobe us and leave us in nothing but our underrobes. The room we are in is large and stifling, full of girls disrobing and re-robing as they are inspected by stout older women, elaborately dressed to show off their status as senior ladies in waiting, perhaps wives to important court officials. Eunuchs bustle about, some assisting with the undressing and dressing, some noting down comments made by the ladies on each girl and reminding them of every candidate's status and family. Perhaps a smelly girl will be reassessed if her family is very important. Perhaps a lowly girl from an out-of-favour family will be marked down as malodorous as a good way of removing her from the possibility of being chosen. I lift my arm as instructed, and the sturdy woman assigned to my row puts her face against my armpit and inhales loudly. I look away in embarrassment, and when I look back, she's nodding briskly to the eunuch at her side, who makes a note against my name. It seems I do not stink. I look hopefully about for my robe to be given back to me, but instead the woman kneels in front of me and lifts up my underskirts. I step backwards. "Keep still, you stupid girl," she says. I stop moving and gaze down at her in horror as she sticks her face under the skirts, close to my private parts, and I hear her inhale again. She emerges and nods to the eunuch, ignoring my now scarlet face. Apparently every part of me must be found to be acceptable to the sensitivities of a possible imperial husband. By the time I have regained my composure and my robe, my hair is being checked for lice and my teeth scrutinized. The court physician takes my 12 pulses and examines my tongue before he pronounces me to be of a cold and damp disposition, something the imperial kitchens will take into account when cooking for me, should I end up residing here. Bound feet? You have bound feet? Heads turn. A girl has been found with bound feet, despite being Manchu. She looks terrified. We all crane our heads to see under her skirts, catch a glimpse of tiny pointed stubs encased in embroidered slippers, and then quickly look away again. The head eunuch is appalled. Bound feet are forbidden, as you and your family are well aware. What were they thinking? A noble Manchu family copying the disgusting habits of the common Han Chinese. Your family will be fined, and you and all your sisters will be rejected for any possible union with the imperial family. So a little bit of time goes by, and now this woman arrives who's going to choose the girls. Noble consort Niuhuru, primary consort to his imperial majesty, shouts the eunuch, and we all straighten up. The woman who enters the courtyard, surrounded by guards and attendants, must be about 40. She is very tall for a woman. She stands almost as tall as a few of her guards. She makes her way to a carved throne, which has been placed at one end of the courtyard in front of our neatly laid out rows, then sits. Her attendants fuss about her for a few moments before she irritably waves them away. Her face is set in a grimly determined expression, and I wonder whether she dislikes the task of choosing exquisite young brides for her husband, the emperor, whether she is being eaten up with jealousy at this very moment. By her side stands the chief eunuch, a very splendidly dressed and imposing figure who arrived with her, currently consulting various folded papers so that he can give Lady Niuhuru advice on whom to select. These papers will give details of our families and fathers, as well as any additional useful information, perhaps recent military prowess to be rewarded, or noble connections to be taken account of. There is some discreet murmuring in Lady Niuhuru's ear before she nods and indicates 3 girls in rapid succession, each of whom falls to their knees and kowtows to her before the chief eunuch calls out their names and pronounces them concubines for the emperor himself. There follows a few moments of murmured discussions, Lady Niuhuru shaking her head. There will be no further selection of ladies for the emperor, announces the chief eunuch, looking a little disappointed, as do some of the girls, who perhaps had their eyes on the emperor. A handful of girls are chosen as ladies in waiting. These look quite pleased. They will serve at court for a few years, catch the eye of a suitably high-placed husband if they can, and be given a goodly sum of money with which to start married life. Her ladyship will now choose the primary consort and additional ladies for her son, Prince Bauer of the first rank. Lady Niuhuru seems reluctant to begin the process of choosing her son's brides. She pauses, and the chief eunuch leans to whisper in her ear. She looks up in my direction, and for a horrible moment I think she is looking at me, before I realise that in fact she is looking at Fucha, standing in the row behind me. Lady Niuhuru nods. Lady Fucha, chosen as Prince Bao's primary consort. I hear the rustle of silk from behind me as the newly made Lady Fucha kowtows to her future mother-in-law. Wan gives a small nod. Her prediction was correct. There is another consultation, another pause, another nod. Lady Gao, chosen as Gur, concubine to Prince Bao. Lady Su, chosen as Gur, concubine to Prince Bao. She's not very high-ranking, murmurs Wan, who seems well-informed. I watch the girl as she's led to one side. She is exquisitely beautiful. Whatever her family status, she has more than made up for it with her face and figure. Lady Zemin, chosen as Gur, concubine to Prince Bao. She's related to Lady Fucha, whispers Wan. I nod. It looks as though her family is being much favoured this year, being granted both a primary consort and a regular concubine. A couple of other girls are chosen, but they're standing right at the back, and we cannot turn to see them. Lady Niuhuru looks at our row, and I hold my breath, but her eyes rest on Wan instead. I can feel her whole body tense up next to me. Lady Wan, chosen as Gur, concubine to Prince Bao. I want to turn to hug her, but I cannot, so instead I stand very still and watch her as she's led away. Last tiny bit?
Half a minute.
Okay. Lady Ula Nara, chosen as Gur, concubine to Prince Bao. For a moment, I think another girl here must have the same name as me. I wait for her to move, to hear the rustle of her robes as she kneels, and then I see the expectant expression of the chief eunuch and realise both he and Lady Niuhuru are looking directly at me. Her great weight inside me drags me down. I feel my knees weakening and then the cold, hard thud of cobblestones as I hit the floor without my will or knowledge.